Proforca is this wonderful theatre company. They're resident here at the Lion and Unicorn. This is one of a series of fantastic productions, bold new plays that often, I think almost annually, right, open the autumn-winter season. So again, we're opening the autumn-winter season here at the Lion and Unicorn. And the Proforca and Lion and Unicorn is under the artistic direction of David Brady, who also directed this play. And this follows, I'm trying to remember, I can't quite recall how many Proforca shows I've seen, but I've definitely done Q&As for Feel, At Last, lately, Flashbang, Volcano, did we do one for that?
Yeah, we didn't do one for Volcano, 5A, but that was a pandemic thing.
Yeah, so there have been a few. And then the people on the panel with David, Melissa Phillips, you might not recognize her from the performance tonight, but she was the voice of God. Kieran Dee, who we enjoyed seeing tortured, Alex O'Donnell, Dodie Finamore, and Nick Hardie. That it's great. I've actually done a few Q&As with several of you. So Melissa, you were in At Last. I think you also did Feel, yeah. And Kieran, you did Feel more, and I've done other stuff with you. So you guys are returnees. Dodie, you've worked with Proforca before, so you are also kind of an alumnus. Mm-hmm. And Alex, I think this is for both you and Nick your Proforca debuts, but it's also your professional debuts. It is. The kind of reaction you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you pay anybody for that?
Any agents out there?
Yeah, I was going to say.
So let me kick things off, David, with you. I mentioned you've got this growing canon of work, these bold new plays, and in many ways they're so different. But I think for those of in the audience like myself who have seen multiple Proforca plays, we could also actually say there's something really distinguishable about a Proforca production. I'm not sure I can put it into words, but I'm reliant that you can. Tell me, what is it that distinguishes a Proforca show?
It's normal human beings in extraordinary circumstances and how they react to those extraordinary circumstances, and there's usually kind of an emotional kick at the end. Yeah. Normally from a steel toe cap. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe, I think. So the aim is always to make the human beings relatable. It's always to make them people that you see on the street, people that you know, people that you like, people that you talk to, and we try and feed that conversational element of it through the work that we create, I think.
And a lot of them are in kind of really what we would see as modern times, contemporary. This is sort of dystopian near future. How do you think the Shatter Box in particular fits into the lineage of the other plays that I mentioned?
I think we got some feedback, but I think the time was to do something new, do something bold. We'd come out of the pandemic where everybody was making shows that were very similar. I don't know how many of you have seen sort of the one chair, one person show, and now we're just moving.
That's
to
my show, Dave.
Unreal. But I think what it was the move, the narrative move was to make sure that we were telling stories. And as the idea of the theatre, the idea of the building, I think what I want us to all talk about now is moving towards like proper stories that you can, a bit of escapism, a bit of kind of, you turn your brain off for an hour and 7 minutes, an hour and 6 minutes tonight, well done, and kind of experience something that you feel like you've seen a story that felt a little bit this time around, just different from what you've seen before. They weren't normal Londoners on the street, and the setting was a little bit like the science fiction element just took us to a different place to tell that story that was new and a bit interesting for us.
Yeah. Okay, so I put the question to David. I wonder if the actors might say anything different. How do you feel? What do you think is unique about Proforca and working? Kieran, you want to go first?
The answer that I gave when we were interviewed pre-show a few weeks ago was the normal people in extraordinary circumstances thing. And then these circumstances were even more extraordinary than normal, I would say. But that is the answer. I think you can see real people, and that was something that we all tried to work on in this show, was making them real people, but they're all in a very strange place. So how do you make those real people feel real? That's what I would say.
Yeah, Melissa.
It's interesting because having done a couple of the shows with Proforca as well, one of the through lines for me is this understanding of honesty and what honesty means and what vulnerability means. And it's something that we're all comfortable watching but not doing. And I think the work that Proforca puts out is encouraging us in a safe space is to be vulnerable. And the different parts I've played in the shows that I've done with David has just been about sort of exploring that and exploring what it means to be honest, what it means to feel, what it means to be real, what it means to not know, what it means to get it wrong. And what I enjoy the most about Proforca is that it's always a collaborative environment as much as possible. You know, it's still work, but for the most part it's a safe collaborative environment where you can bring your ideas, your experiences, your vulnerabilities to the forefront, and then that transpires in the characters that you play. So I think that's the through line for shows with Proforca, and
That was
Kieran's
such a good
intimidated
answer.
right now.
That was such a good answer.
good night. Bye everyone.
Dodie, can you top that? Anything to add?
Ooh, that's mean. See, I kind of disagree. That this was the first show that felt like there was maybe like some normal people and some not normal people.
Psychopaths.
Yeah, and the character's pretty weird as well.
So I think it was finding that
Yeah.
for me as someone who's playing one of the characters that was least normal.
Yeah.
To kind of like a different process in the guys whose characters were a bit more grounded and
The thing that also occurred to me, and I mentioned this to David earlier, is the loneliness. It seems that so often we come back to loneliness. Like, is that a human condition, a modern malaise, both? I don't know, but it permeates, and in a way, I don't know, it makes you feel less alone watching, to realize that it is so common. But let me come to Alex and Nick before I come to the first audience question. As newbies, how have you found working with Proforca? Nick first.
It's been an absolute delight. It's been really wonderful, and not only has the theatre company been amazing, the show's been wonderful to work on, but the physical space itself is wonderful here at the Lion and Unicorn. I mean, I haven't been acting for too long, and I haven't been in a space like this, as intimate as this, and it's completely different from anything I've done before. So kind of David's been really good at, as Dodie said, finding that grounding and bringing the audience in where they need to be to make sure that we have this sense of reality in this extraordinary circumstance, and this is just a fantastic space for it. So yeah, it's been a really wonderful experience, and I've learned so much already in this past week.
Fantastic. Alex, how about you?
I think it's a remarkable sense of clumping together and really committing to something as a full banded unit, and really just understanding how everyone can help each other to really get to where we wanted to get to. And there was a moment that it clicked on opening night. We did a run earlier in the day, and we all kind of came out and went, yeah, okay, cool, that makes sense. And it was late in the day, but it made so much sense that it kind of gave us that, like, cool, let's go into the opening now and we really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And just that support of each other to get through, because it's an intensive process, and that can often be difficult, particularly when you're dealing with less light topics. But we managed to just band together really quickly as well, which has just been lovely to sort of deal with.
How long was rehearsal?
A week.
1 week.
yeah, we started on Tuesday last week.
Okay.
And we opened on Tuesday this week.
And what was the hottest topic in the rehearsal room? Apart from, like, did you have debates about motivations, and what kind of state would do this to its citizens, or was there no time for that?
What colour, that light there, and that light there?
Lighting.
That light there, and that light there.
I don't really want to talk about that.
What colour is pain?
What colour is pain? What colour is...
Yeah.
I think it was difficult because we were under so much time constraints that these are the types of things that you'd love to talk about, and you know, but there was an element of like, we have to drop it at some point and make sure that we learn our lines before anything else. So.
And I will say tonight that the lights are the wrong colour as well. So the whole show tonight is the wrong colour.
Guess we should have talked about it for a little bit longer.
I didn't know. I thought pain didn't feel painful enough. Jeez, cheating. Okay,
Hello.
you're up.
Thank you. My guy Kieran in the cage.
Yes.
I have two questions. How long were you in there before I walked in to watch the show? And also, what are you telling yourself to sort of get through that? Especially at the start. I was like, how are you just lying there?
Your first question, the answer depends on what time you came in the room.
Right, what did we say?
The house opened like 5.
20 past 7.
They were on time.
Yeah, I was,
So like 50 we opened the doors at 7:15 and the show started at 7:30 and I was in there at 7:15.
Right, okay.
And your second question, I don't know if you get this, but when I feel like I shouldn't fall asleep. You know when you lie down and you're like, I shouldn't fall asleep. You're like, don't fall asleep.
Like in drama school when they make you lie on the floor.
Yeah. And you're thinking, I'm just going to go to sleep now.
Stay awake. Yeah.
It's essentially that. It's essentially that, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I ran into Kieran the other day and I was like, how's it going? He's like, I spent a lot of time in a cage. Oh, that was brilliant.
Just like renting in London, basically.
Brilliant. So you don't get to do this, Kieran, but I think another element that I notice a lot about Proforca shows is that you do get the actors out mingling in amongst the audience. Actors, apart from Kieran in the cage, what's that like? Do you have to get shove people along? Do people not want to move? Anybody smell?
I mean, you just said budge up, didn't you? I mean, that's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
You just said budge up.
Well, usually there's a space there, but tonight there wasn't, so I had to improvise. But it was either that or sitting on their lap, and I didn't want to, cause
That's a
an
different
issue,
show.
so. Yeah, exactly. That's after this. People are usually pretty receptive, and I personally think it's wonderful. I love getting the audience involved. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's quite fun to just really get up in someone's business for no reason. And today, one of my friends was sitting there, so I sort of went, can I sit there? And he went, yes, of course. And then did this. And you could see him go, yep, that was fun. It's funny seeing how different people receive you speaking to them. Some people can literally nod with you as you're talking, and other people can be like, just don't make eye contact.
I don't think I could do it if it was somebody I knew.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's worse, doing it with somebody you know.
So it is to begin with, and then what I tend to do is go, I'm going to look at you for 3 full seconds and then move away, and now I'm numb to you and I don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
Unless they start smiling, which is a different situation. Not really in this.
You said earlier on about what Proforca's thing is, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of audience nudge in what we do, right? So every show that we do, there's a little bit of the characters going, what do you think? What do you think about this? How do you feel about this? I feel about this way. You must feel like that too, right? Whether it's ridiculous or not. And getting people into the audience to do that is my way of kind of going, we're sharing this collective experience together, and I can't magic a wall up here. It's like it would look weird. It would feel weird. So that's why I stick people. I sit them there or sit them there. Or when we did Flashbang, somebody came terrifyingly chatted to me at the back of the room. Right? It's because we're all in this together and we're all in this shared experience together. And that's the Proforca thing of I feel this. Do you feel the same?
It's very much that. And in the show that is as dark as this one, it also kind of implicates the audience. Don't you feel like we're complicit in what's happening?
Well, the word that Dodie and I talked about at the end that's really important is the word collaborate. I don't know if you heard at the end, they talk about we're going to work together, we're going to work on this thing, we're going to work out, and then the word at the end becomes collaborate. So at the end when she turns around to him and says, well, look, this is as much your fault as it is mine, we're in this together, we're all in this together, so it's as much your fault as it is ours as to what happened to Kieran in the cage today.
When we say, that's so funny, because collaborate, if you think about it creatively, you think of it as a positive thing, but you talk about it like in war or criminal activity, collaboration is just bad. We're all bad. Okay. But who's got another hand? I can see one here.
Love the ending. Well, that's it.
You felt sick?
No, I felt sick to myself. No, I thought it was really good. Really cool. I think the idea of the fact that he confesses after so long to fact that he's just lonely. That's the deepest thing he can admit, right? Is that like, and also in the age of like social media, Instagram, Twitter, like the things that people convey versus what's actually going on in their life.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. We're talking about audience interaction, and I know there's a lot of technicalities to this, and I thought the immersive aspect was so cool. Would you have considered pushing that even further and getting someone from the audience in the cage to admit to their worst fear?
So what you don't know that we know is that until, I want to say Saturday, but maybe it was Sunday or maybe it was Monday, I've lost track of the time.
Sunday 9 p.m.
Sunday 9 p.m, this was in the round. So there would have been a line of audience members sat at the back, and it was stressful for all of us to sit in, it was stressful to look at, it was stressful to watch. So creatively there was this big, like, oh my god moment on Sunday where I was like, we're going to take those benches out. And I think, to be honest, best creative decision we made for the good of the show. And then opening night, we had a gentleman come in, and I clear all the audience out as we leave, and the duty manager took them downstairs, and I came back in, and there was an audience member taking a selfie in the cage.
Nice.
So that's probably as close as we're going to get. And he's not posted it on social media.
Yes.
Yet. So I don't know what he's done with that photo. So if you find a gentleman that's taking a photograph in our
Would
cage,
you like people to take selfies in the cage?
No, I don't think I would.
No.
I don't know. I don't know how I felt about it, but like, you know when it's like somebody, it's not meant to be this. I mean, maybe you want to get an occasion. I know we have a photo opportunity at the end. It's not meant to be something that you want to kind of take a photograph in.
Yeah.
But the way that audiences want to interact with you in your work is really interesting, and that's kind of that thing. So what we lost in terms of taking the row of seats out the back and everybody talking around this way, we gained it somebody somewhere. There's a gentleman posting his photograph on Instagram account.
I'm looking out for that. I hope you use the hashtag. Other hands? In the back, please.
I've got an old work here, but firstly, thank you for not giving anybody. If you've ever watched another Proforca show, someone dies. So, thank you.
That's another common element. Branched out.
I love the ending, and I just want to ask all the actors really, as an actor, do you prefer playing baddies, or do you prefer playing good people? And Kieran, because at the end, you turn into the baddie. How does that feel to have that control in that situation, especially since you're in the cage and then it was like, now I have total control of these people?
Yeah.
I'm so interested that you think he was the baddie then. I just thought he was so sad that he would make that choice.
No, but he, in effect of that, he turns everything on its head, and he's now in control.
Yeah.
So to me, he's flipped the lid on everything, and he's like, you know, you can't control me now, which is so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's something we talked about a lot in the process was like whether or not I'm a good guy who's in here for whatever, or if I've got a plan on what's going on, or when I'm telling the truth and when I'm not. And a lot of the discussions we had were, well, the audience will make their own mind up about that. And whether or not you think I'm a good person or a bad person at the end is kind of up to everyone, right? To make their own choice about. And we did think a lot in the end about, we did one version where I'm like, so let's start again, shall we, with a big old evil grin. And then another one that's like relief, that like, we can do this again and I don't have to be on my own anymore. So there are like loads of different options. I think the option we settled on was one that could maybe give some people different opinions on whether he's evil or good, or whether he's won, or if he's lost by locking himself in there.
Yeah.
So I think that's great that like two people that are speaking are saying they think differently about the ending already.
Yeah.
For me, I think he wins at the end by doing that. And before these guys answer your question, I think it's more enjoyable to play a baddie than it is a goodie.
Yeah, Kieran's a bad man.
Thank you very much.
Was there ever a version where he threw one of the others into the cage and shut
It's
the door?
not. It wasn't.
So there is a draft of the script that exists somewhere where, and we didn't do it. We kind of like, for those of you that's in the work for, we love a cameo. Like sometimes people appear in different places, and so at the end of the show, the lights were going to go down, and then the lights were going to come up, and there was going to be an actor that you'd never seen before in the cage, and the whole process would start again. So there is one draft of the script where it's like he goes away, the cage resets itself, and this whole idea of resetting, I think, happened. Then there was another draft where she ended up in the cage, which wasn't right. And then there was another draft in the cage where the man on the end ended up in the cage. So there's been different versions where different people have ended up in the cage.
Without a cheeseburger.
Without a cheeseburger this time around.
Well, it does seem to me that I can imagine forward the story, and they all do end up in. I mean, Alex's character actually refers to it at one point. You know, what would you say? You've told so many lies if you were in the cage. You know, so everyone has their own things to feel guilty about.
But we had this conversation, and I said as the director of the piece, the thing this is going to sound weird, so I'll try and articulate what I mean. I don't care what happens after that blackout happens and the Turtle song plays. I don't care, because it's going to be up to you to decide what happens, and they have ownership of like what happens before. I have ownership of what you see when you come into the space, and I have ownership a little bit in terms of characterizations to what happens. I genuinely don't care what happens. Like our job with it, this job with the show is finished the minute that blackout goes down, because that's the story that we've told, we've chosen to tell for this. You will have different versions of the events as to what happens and where they all go next. Do they all get taken outside and shot in the head? Do they all get released and find some redemption? Does the whole thing start all over again?
Yeah.
And the Shatter Box is still playing in 4 years' time with a different actor every time, a bit like the Queens of Six. You just get different ones and then you start seeing like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got it. Okay, so baddie or goodie, Melissa?
Ooh. Do you know what? I think I like playing the good person, but I think playing the bad person is harder. I think creatively as an actor it's harder to play the bad person, because I think that what I've learned is the trick to playing a good bad person is to make them likable, or fascinating. So there's something in Hannibal Lecter that you just are like, I like that, you know, or you know. Even serial killers like Ted Bundy, there's something like, it's not just the attractiveness, but there's something there. But like, I like playing the good person. I like, I'm heart-centered, so I like playing the goodie.
That's lovely. Alex, baddie or goodie?
I don't know. I think what was nice about this was I was kind of playing a good person in a bad situation, which made me inherently also a bad person because I couldn't get them out. And I think that was quite nice and complex to deal with.
So a bit of both.
A bit of both, I think, yeah.
Dodie?
Good.
You like to be good?
Yeah. Found it really hard to be bad. It was a challenge.
Oh.
But no, like, juicy.
Juicy, yeah, icy. Juicy and icy. And Nick, I'm gonna guess, but you tell us.
Of course, it's got to be bad. It's fantastic. I mean, like, I think as humans, we like to think that we're good people. Like at heart, you think, oh, I'm a good person. So playing someone who's completely psychopathic is just wonderful. And following on from what Melissa said, it was really real challenge, and David would back me up. I found it very difficult to find this character in that he needed to be bad and obviously not a nice person, but also had to be grounded in reality and a real person. And I kept, because I haven't really played a baddie before, and
you're very good at it.
Naturally good at it. And I kept doing, after lines, I would do this sort of pantomime laugh. Like that. And they would go, you've done the pantomime laugh again.
I was threatening to taser him if he did the pantomime laugh.
Oh, it's so bad. And so, like, you know, it was really difficult to ground this character. So yeah, it was very interesting to play. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Okay, other hands. Yes, good.
In terms of your, like Melissa, your voice from above, what was the creative decision behind it? 'Cause a lot of times it sounded almost like half poetic and half like you fed a prompt into a chatbot, like an AI program. So in terms of not making that sort of make sense in terms of like an actual person, like what was the...
How was it different type of...
Yeah, it was definitely different doing that and just trying to find that flat line, not quite empathy, but also sort of not quite robotic. I think we sat down together and we sort of figured out what is the king's role in this, what is my role in this, and it is essentially, you know, the through line for the story. It's telling you, if you listen, it's telling you where he's at in his descent, you know, in his stats and his figures. But creatively, I think we just sort of wanted to keep it very neutral, very calm. A lot of the time when we sat there, like David and I would sit there in the recording booth, it would, the direction that I got was, because the temptation when you're doing narration or voiceover is to potentially give it too much gusto or something, but it's just in the background, just letting you know this is where we're at in the story. And so for me, it was about trying to honour that, and the hardest thing was actually making things sound the same and having that consistency. David, jump in.
But there's a wild track somewhere on the audio.
That's never been released.
The service pretending to be security guards working out what we've got to eat for dinner and what's we're going to play in. And that's how we took out. That's how we got the fun stuff out, so that we could do the monotone thing.
Yes.
And as the script is written, those quotes are written into the script, and they're written in, and they're real quotes about the truth from real people. So, and that Emily Dickinson quote, which kind of closes out the torture scene, was so beautifully perfect, and it's so very well delivered. I think in this kind of like childlike narration, like a school teacher saying it. I think it's almost like that voice of control was levelled there. I think.
There's a lot happening on the screen too, by the control desk, the on-stage control desk. How did you come up with all of that? What is happening there?
So I got told off because I got told off that we used projection too much.
Oh, in previous productions.
I was like, we're not using projection anymore. So we're going to...
It wasn't telling off, it was
feedback. We're going to sneak it in.
Pop it on the TV.
So we're going to sneak it in the background. It does make sense. There's brain scans and stuff, and when they line up beautifully, and Dodie and Kieran are walking around, Kieran looks out and he's looking at a brain scan. I would love to say that we planned it that way. We didn't really. It's all fortune and it works well. But the physical stuff makes it feel like there's a room elsewhere that isn't the cage. And that was really the aim behind the TV and stuff.
But there definitely was like that kind of... I remember when we were kind of talking about it at the beginning, it was like, what are the themes? And it's kind of, it is all this kind of AI and what could happen. Is King a person? Are they a machine? Who's controlling the machine? How control and how that who has it?
But I kept thinking of the AI too, because there has it has been reported that there are systems now, AI systems that can read your thoughts, which
and
is
attaches
terrifying.
a value to those thoughts. So the aim behind it was that there's like a narcotic value in secrets, right? So the machine has become narcotically addicted to the secret. So if you come in and you say that you're a murderer or you've stolen the Mars bar, that's got some value. And then what the machine has done and gone, right, okay, well that's nice, thank you for that information. What happens if you're a murderer? And then there's a bit of a hit for the system in that, like somebody, and so like, okay, fine, that's a hit. But actually, the deepest, darkest features that we've got are like there's a biggest adrenaline narcotic. What's the chemicals? Serotonin, like all of that sort of stuff. But for the machine, so it's gone out and it's grabbing these people because it's juicing them because it's addicted to human secrets and the value.
Oh gosh, let's just shut down ChatGPT, shall we? What other sci-fi influences did you notice in this production? I kept thinking Matrix was the thing in the back.
Resistance is futile. I got told off so many times. So David is a huge Star Wars fan. Star Trek. I'm joking. See how angry Star Trek.
Put him in the cage.
And so there were, I mean, he knows more than I do that he likes to put references in.
First thing we said. Literally the first thing we said. No, so there's a couple of Star Trek references in there. There's a real Black Mirror type vibe to it, and that's kind of what we wanted to take away from it. And again, they use those stories really well to use the sci-fi lens to kind of look at real world solutions. So there's some of that. There is a very big Doctor Who reference in there if you look for it, and it's an audio reference.
Did anyone get the Doctor Who reference?
I won't tell you what
The
it is.
TARDIS?
Surely this is Matrix, right?
There's a Matrix reference in there. There's all sorts of stuff in there. It's all kind of thrown in there. So there's some really the thing we talked about. At the
What's the Doctor Who reference?
Yeah, you said that.
Sorry, there's a noise. There's an audio cue. There's a very big thunk that you can hear, and it's drawn from the sound of the TARDIS landing. There you go.
Oh my gosh!
Sorry?
Biggest nerd in the room.
The brilliant thing about science fiction stories, though, is that science fiction stories allow us to tell stories about the real world that you can't tell. And particularly in the 1960s, when they were making science fiction, they were telling real world stories about things like civil rights and stuff that they couldn't talk about because they weren't allowed, and they weren't allowed to put them on TV. So that's why there's a science fiction vibe to it, and it's Star Trek, not Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, we got it. Okay, we're going to have one final question about this show, and then I'm going to ask other associates and artists to tell us what's coming up. So, who's got the best final question about this show? In the back.
I don't know if it's the best, please don't put that one. But just in terms of talking about AI and putting value to thoughts, what would you say then with Kieran's big revelation being that he's lonely? What is the value of loneliness?
That is a big old question. Would you like to answer it, David?
What do you mean in terms of why?
In terms of, so obviously you say about murder, you know,
Yeah.
confessing to be a murderer, that can have a certain value. In terms of somebody confessing to being lonely, what would that be a big hit for the machine? Would it be fine, go away? Would it be, oh my god, I've got everything I want, you know?
So they talk in the video about calibration, right? So it scanned his brain at the beginning and it's gone, what's your deepest, darkest secret? And for some people it's going to be really horrible, really real life practical stuff. For him, it really 100% is like, I am the loneliest person in the world and that's why nobody ever phones. And the machine's like, oh, I'll have that, please, thank you very much. So for that character, there's all that bluster and all that bravado and all of that bouncing backwards and forwards in the tennis, and actually he's just like, that's the secret that he's been keeping. And those tricks are the tricks that he used to mask in his real life. You know, like, there are people like, oh, I didn't spend Christmas on my own, or I spent Christmas with loads of people and they spent it on their own, or they were out and masking every day. And that masking, I think, is something that we talked about being the value of covering for that really deep, dark secret.
I think also, just to add to that, my dad sent me a quote which I think works quite well for this, which is that, I'm going to misquote it and I can't remember who said it, but it is a quote.
You said in the dressing room before we came out, let me memorise that quote.
It was about the fact that you can only control someone up until the point that you've taken everything from them. And I think with Kieran's character literally disintegrating and being so decrepit at the end, to then reveal the last thing that he literally has that he can say, then the sort of control that he then has makes so much sense with that idea that as soon as you take something from someone, you're no longer in control of them, they are now free. And I think that was a really interesting thing when my dad sent that to me, because he's all-knowing and all of those things. He sort of went, this really made me think of that, and that made, I think, a lot of sense to all of us, really, and it kind of cemented a lot of what we'd been thinking of.
Wow, smart man. I'm going to come back to you all at the end with a final quick fire session, which you could either choose. David said we need to ask everybody what they would confess in the cage. I thought, oh, that's I thought,
I need to speak to my agent.
I thought that's really dark. I thought that's really dark. So my less, more frivolous question is, what's your worst idea of form of torture? Yeah, nice and light. So you can think on that. Okay, who's bringing work next here at the Lion and Unicorn? Yeah, tell us about it.
So I'm David Patterson, but the show's called The Old Queen's Head. I've written it, performing it with my producer Cara, who's next to me. And fundamentally it's about finding joy in heartbreak, and it's all about the central question is, do I want to be you or do I want to be with you? And it's about a young guy writing a letter to his ex-boyfriend, begging him for another chance, and at the desk he's writing it at is a bust of the late Queen, and she sort of forms an unlikely guide and helps him kind of go on this voyage of discovery and self-acceptance, and it's hilarious, and you should all come see it.
Joy and heartbreak, I like that. And what are the dates of the Old Queen's Head?
20th to 24th of September, so 2 weeks yesterday until Tuesday.
And as we know, it is a year tomorrow that the Queen died, where we had our Q&A. We had a Q&A the night the Queen died. That was hard. Okay, who else? Who's bringing stuff? Yes, here.
Hi, I'm Kitty. I run Pistachio Theatre Company, and we've got a scratch night coming to Lion Unicorn on the 17th and 18th of September. It's called Out the Shell. And there'll be monologues, duologues, extracts from plays, and some musical comedy as well. But yeah, just lots of exciting new writing. So come along and support.
Thank you. In the back?
Hi, I'm Anna, and I co-run Dawn Train Theatre with Jakey. We're bringing Breast Bearing on the 26th to the 30th of September. Come along. It's all about queer lovers, phallic parries, and crumbling cliffs.
Phallic what?
Phallic parries.
Oh, yeah, of course.
David wouldn't allow it.
There's no nudity involved. Even though it's called Breast Bearing.
So it's like sword fighting with penises?
No.
Yes.
It can be whatever you like.
Find out. We've got live music, new writing. Come along, it's going to be fun.
It sounds like. Okay, who else? Back row, and then we'll come forward.
I'm the co-founder of Fruity Theatre Company alongside Aiza, who could be here today, but we have written we directed and produced Nail Polish, which is a play that we took up for Edinburgh, had a very successful run, and it's the company was born out of the adversities we faced as queer people, and we were really struggling, and we didn't really feel like we were being heard. So we made the show where we finally felt like we were being heard and how we got through it with a sense of community. So it kind of the company really reflects what happens in the play, and it's funny, it's sad, it's everything I wanted to bring to life. So, yeah.
And sorry, what's the name of it?
It's called Nail Polish.
Nail Polish, and the dates are?
The 30th of October to the 4th of November.
Thank you. And just in front of you?
Hello, yes. We are bringing double acts in January, first couple of weeks of January, 9th of January. It's a play that incorporates clown and spoken words, and it explores the themes of urban isolation and suicide, but it is a comedy. It's fun.
And Nick is a Proforca alumnus as well, so Nick was in the very first Fillmore, so before we even took over, Nick and Melissa were in the same iteration of Fillmore, and Nick was in 48.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Welcome, Nick. Anyone else? Am I missing anyone? Okay, so that's a lot. Lots to come back for. So, David, before I ask you about your torture method, what... given we've heard about some of the work coming up, tell us, how long now have you been running the Lion and Unicorn? Has it changed? What is this that we've just heard indicate for your plans for the theatre?
So we started in March 2019, you and I, in the day.
Okay.
And so we had a small break in the middle. And I always say this all the time, but Youngs were really good to us and they really looked after us, so the continuation of this has been down to the relationship that we have with the pub and how much they've looked after us and the great relationship that I have and how much we value. I think Avi is in the audience somewhere, so Avi has been here a year now as well. For me, the work has really evolved. I think we all had a tough time during COVID, and I think I joked a little bit earlier on about the one man and one chair shows that we all made during that time, right? The time now for all of us is to move on and make new, braver stuff, right? We've got that out of the way now, and now's the time to do some new, cool, smart things. We want to be the platform to be able to do that, and we want to kind of push the envelope a little bit more in terms of the stories that we're telling. And I think certainly the ethos of the theatre now is going to be like, come give the audience a decent night out. In a world where the audience can get 15 quid tickets and see Wicked, not that I have anything against Wicked at all.
Great show.
But as an example of the West End is really brilliant, but it creates the same experience for people over and over again. Our job is to be as competitive in terms of the storytelling that we sell and make it as compelling that people want to come and see us, who may not necessarily be in our circle or make the work that we kind of make, right? There's a very self-indulgent element of fringe theatre making, which is we make the work for our mates. And now the job is to make work for people that wouldn't come here, wouldn't experience this sort of venue, because I think that people come into this environment, enjoy it and love it. Like I came into it and loved it all those years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's great stories from great people that are accessible to as many people as possible from a storytelling perspective. And yeah, that's the plan.
Great. And Nick, torture method or confession?
Where do I begin? I was trying to think of something funny to say, and then I actually thought two things. Any sort of knife and fork scraping on a plate. Yeah, it makes my teeth feel funny.
Yeah.
Or someone eating loudly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you're easy to torture.
I was struggling and I thought, I don't mind chewing my own nails. Not that I do it much anymore, but if someone like chewed my nails for me and like went got stop and like slowly instead of like pulling your nails out, if it was like they're gonna slowly chew all your nails.
That is fucking
where did your brain go?
Alex.
Well, I was going to say the knives and forks thing, but I think also, yeah. If not that, then maybe like there being music blasted and then someone with a microphone singing just off the note for every single note.
What about if it's like constant karaoke and they're really bad?
Oh.
That would be bad.
I feel like I could get excited about that.
Okay.
That I could just pretend to go along with it and then fool myself into it. But if it's just deliberately half a tone off,
maybe they're singing Wicked and then Kieran, torture or confession?
I feel like this is a safe space and I don't want anyone to come at me with anything later. But it's a bit of an issue for me. I really, really struggle with polystyrene. It's like it's fucking disgusting. And it's really scary as well.
In what way? Like what?
It's
Like
so dry, and I don't know.
Are you being buried in the polystyrene?
I don't want to think about that. But like worst thing ever, I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to think about it, would be like, put your hand in the bath for an hour, take your hand out of the bath, dry it off, then touch some polystyrene. Can you imagine that?
I thought I knew these people.
I was creative. I think I changed my mind.
It's hard to talk about, but I wanted to open up.
It could be flies.
Melissa.
Torture. Probably sitting down to a seafood buffet with all of my exes surrounded by huntsman spiders.
Oh,
Stunning. That is hell.
Yeah.
No idea what I'd let you all in for, but David, finish us off.
Mine is specific, and don't shoot me at the end. It's being stuck in a room with Nadine Dorries and Suella Braverman and trying to get them to give you a straight answer forever.
Was Nadine Dorries in an earlier version of the script?
So yeah.
Yes, I know.
There was a Nadine Dorries reference in the script, and the day that we went into rehearsal, she quit her job. 18 months.
It said Nadine Dorries is still an MP. I'm like,
and the day that we start rehearsal, she does the one bloody day's worth of work in her actual life and quits. So we have to rewrite the script.
But can we still call that Liz Truss?
So this is Liz, by the way. This is Liz Truss. So we refer to Liz.
And I get handcuffs to her.
Okay, I think there must be other people that I wanted to shout out. Was Georgie? No?
I think they might have gone to the bar.
Did they know? Okay,
Yeah.
right. So have I shouted out everyone? Have I done everything?
I think so.
Okay, then tell me finally, the Shatter Box is here until the 16th, is it? 16th
Yes.
of September, and then all these other great shows. So now, when we prep all these fine folk, we're then going to gather together, budge up, and we're going to do a group shot. So any of you with cameras and social media, will you please take a photo of that, share it to your platform of choice, tell people to come again. Yes? Is everyone saying yes? Great. Okay, then finally join me in thanking David and Melissa and Kieran and Alex and Dodie and Nick.